Welcome to another Cycle25 session. We are recording. Thank you so much for joining us yet again. Today, I am lucky to have the magnificent Vince Dion to talk to us a little bit about circuit design in the digital age. Vince, take it away, my friend.
Well, good morning, Cycle25, and I want to thank you because a few weeks ago I posted out a question, and the question was, how can I replace a whiteboard in the digital age to do some simple circuit design? And so I need a screen share to get going here. I asked the question, what software do you folks use in order to figure out circuit design and circuit layout? And I really needed something simple because I'm a simple kind of guy, as anybody knows. I wanted something that I could drag and drop objects with, that I could figure out some layout problems, that I could draw the way I was taught in 1978 in drafting class without wearing out my eraser, because that's what I was doing, trying to solve a problem. You see, I started here on the left. I started here with a pencil drawing, and you're looking at, I believe, version 2 of the drawing. And then I used some bad words because I realized I had made enough errors and I had enough little bits of eraser stuff all over the floor that I could not possibly use enough brooms and dustpans to sweep up. And so this is where I started. And so I asked for help, and I got this list, and I thought of it as, well, there's a whole big buttload of answers. And before you wonder about the etymology of buttload, I did want to present this official document that shows exactly how big is a buttload. And there was a whole pile of them. So with that said, I do want to flip over and start talking about, first off, the one that came in for which I owe Mark Smith, Smitty Halibut, a great vote of thanks and my undying adoration for, and that's called Draw.io. And so today I'm going to attempt to demonstrate Draw.io and show you where I came from and where I'm going to. So with that, I shall once again hit the magic share button, and I'll start there. Here we go. Well, the first really interesting thing I noticed about Draw.io when I opened it up is it comes up and it says, well, gee, here's diagrams.net. So there's an aliasing going on, and whatever I can remember, Draw.io, that's the important thing to me. And the interface looked vaguely familiar. It kind of looked like Microsoft Visio, love it or hate it. It's an interesting product that lets you do some drag and drop stuff, and it's got a bunch of shapes predefined. And so I thought to myself, well, I'm trying to draw a schematic. Maybe it's in the engineering section. So let's pick this stuff and try and create it. And lo and behold, there's some nice samples. Oh, hey, what's this? Get the desktop. Gee, I wonder what that'll do. Oops, it opened up over there. Hey, look, you want to download this to your desktop, you can do that too. So it sits in the cloud or it sits on your computer. I've been using it just strictly in the cloud, and yes, it does save the file locally. The drawings that I'll show you in a couple minutes, there's 4 or 5 tabs in the drawings, and it takes 20 kilobytes, not megabytes, not gigabytes, 20 kilobytes of storage on my hard drive because it stores everything up in XML, and it's nice and simple and straightforward. To draw onto here, if I wanted to bring an actor on, I just did that. I just went over here, click, drag and drop, and if I don't like the position of it, I can rotate it, I can stretch the size of it if I do it correctly, and if I need to join this object to another, there's some rather simple ways to do that. Here we go. There's a line that goes between the two, and that is how hard it is to draw. So far, so good, right? Looks pretty interesting. All right. So then, keeping in mind that what I ultimately wanted to do was replace a whiteboard in the digital age, or replace pencil and paper, and goodness forbid, try to get all of these pencil shavings and eraser things out of the way. My needs are simple, and that's something I wanted to cover, is what the purpose was. So when I got back the buttload of answers from you very excellent folks, looking over at the answers on my other monitor, KiCad was at the top of the list, Easy EDA was next, and then a single vote for a whole bunch of other things, the other tools that people use for circuit board design, for circuit board troubleshooting. We were talking about repair and refurbishment a bit earlier on before we started into the presentation. CNC machining of circuit boards for a whole pile of different purposes. People use different tools. My purpose was simple. I was looking for a simple visualization tool for simple things because I'm a simple guy. If you ask me to put a P-channel JFET on top of the retro turbo encabulator in the middle of the circuit board so that I can do harmonic distortions of you've already lost me. That's not where my skill set is. I'm all about building simple switching networks and simple things to make my life a bit easier around the shack. And what I'm trying to replace, I'm going to flip around a fair bit here today, is what I'm trying to replace is this little switch box I have right here in my shack that interfaces a boom mic into the front of my radio. I used to have a switch box that fit into this enclosure. Now I thought I'd fit it into this enclosure, and that one's not going to fit because, well, gee, it's too tall for my workbench. And so I've got this lovely enclosure here. Well, how big is this connector? Will it fit in the front panel? Will this one fit in the front panel? I had all of these problems going on in my head that I was trying to figure out. And that's where the simple drawing software came in. And so when I took a look at there we go. When I took a look at the way that I could drag and drop elements onto it, and I could do things like I can take an element and rotate it, or I can invert it, or I can flip it horizontally or vertically, or I can recolor the lines, or I can put some text around it. Dang, I knew I was there. Did it come with all these four pole double throw switches in it with the lines in the gang? Heck no, they were all single pole double throw switches. All I had to do was line them up on the grid. If I didn't like where an object aligned, well, I can just pick it up and drag it. Oh, look, sometimes the lines move too. Don't like it? Hit Control Z to undo it. It's really that simple. And so my Switchbox's purpose, by the way, this is a project I've been working on for a little bit, and I'm finding I'm spending just so much time in design rather than in execution. Maybe I'm having too much fun in the design, is I want to clean up some wiring on my bench. I've got a wire that I don't like where it runs off my CW key in the front, so I'm just going to plug it into the front of this box. It's a straight-on pass-through, and it'll pick up on the back. Plug into my keyer in the back. I've got that 1/4-inch mic input that I've already shown you, and it's an output from my mixer board, and so I want to be able to send it into the mic pins here, and I've got some PTTs that I want to use any one of them at any time, so I just leave them connected all the time, and I, of course, only use one of them. The microphone, however, I either want to go with the 1/4-inch boom mic, or I want to go with a Heil headset that I recently purchased, and I want to use the Heil headphones at the same time. So now the ganging switch notation begins to make sense. I want one or the other, and then I want to route the audio output from the speaker output, or now my Heil PRAS, into my Heil headphones. I want to be able to take my computer input as a secondary switch and pipe it into one side so that I can simultaneously listen to my radio in one ear and listen to a remote SDR in another, which is handy for calling an 80-meter net, which I do on Saturday night. So the schematic helped me figure all of that out, but really what this is for me is a wiring diagram, because I build only the finest spaghetti wired enclosures that you've ever seen. And by finest, I mean that every wire is probably the same color. So when it comes to troubleshooting it, it's really difficult. And a diagram like this, I print and I put in my file folder, and then I hang on to it, and when I need to troubleshoot it, I can figure it out. But look, there's more. So Let's take a top view of some of the enclosures and some front and rear views. So now I can take my friend I forgot to get a prop. Now I can take my friend, the trusty caliper that we all own one of because they're such a handy tool, and we talked about this in the $250 workbench, and I can take and measure. Well, I can say, well, gee, this RJ45 connector I'm thinking of using is convert it to inches because I'm an English kind of guy, 0.57 inches, so 0.6 inches. So I'm going to grab a shape from over here and I'm going to drag it, drop it, and it's 0.6 this way, and it's 1.17 this way. And so I go 117 by 57, 120 by 60 is close enough for what I'm doing. And I can top view this item, and if I put this item somewhere in the enclosure, I can see how big it is. Is it going to take up too much space? It's a way for me to prototype all that physical stuff that I have to do without picking up a drill bit, without making a hole in the wrong place in my really pretty Hammond enclosures. I want to do this right the first time. I don't want to make mistakes and have to cover up a hole or have a hole out of line because, oh my goodness, if my holes aren't drilled in a straight line, it triggers me and I have to look at it all the time. I want it to be straight. I want it to look like it was nicely done and nicely thought out. And so with that, the whole idea behind it was, here's some quick ways for me, the guy who works with a hand drill and a hand reamer to build most of his stuff, who doesn't have access to a shop, who doesn't know how to use CAD, here's an easy way for me to do the prototyping work. When I take a look at the front elevation, I do the same thing. But the first thing I did was I built up a little library of shapes. Here's the front view of a 3.5 millimeter jack, the front view of the 1/4 inch Rapco or Switchcraft connectors that I've chosen to use, the RJ45. Here's what it looks like from the front. Here's what it looks like from the top. I built this little library up down here so I could drag the shapes into what I wanted. Then I took a look at the really pretty Hammond enclosure that I'm going to use, and I measured it with my calipers, and I measured the interior, and I took a look at the inside heights, and it was as simple as saying, well, I want to put a 4-pole double throw switch about here on the front plate. What does that look like? Do I have room for it when I start to prototype it out? This was a really quick and easy way for me to do that. And I had a couple of different views of this now. So initially I was looking at this lovely, lovely cable that came to me from the purveyor of all goods delivered to my front door that has a Prime account, and it's got a lovely RJ45 on it. And I was just about ready to take this and chop it and strip the wires back and use it and get rid of the rest. But this is a beautiful connector. It's designed for panel mounting somewhere. I can't remember where. Doesn't matter. For my purpose, it's going to be good enough. There's 2 levels of quality, right? Good and good enough. There's probably more levels of quality than that. I'm joking. But I realized quickly as I was doing this drawing, the front view of this connector was going to exceed the size of my panel. And that's one of the benefits from me laying it out this way. I didn't have to, I needed a 4x8 foot whiteboard to figure all of this out. I'm a simple guy, right? Draw all over the place, looks like a mad scientist sometimes. And so when I started to look at this connector, which I found in my junk box, I'm like, well, I just need a new set of drawings. So I remeasured it out. I duplicated these pages because you can right-click duplicate, create a new tab. Well, excuse me. So here's the new top view with the reimagined smaller RJ45, and lo and behold, this one will fit. I'm over the moon with this kind of simplicity. This is drag and drop simple. Well, so does it address electronic design? Heck no, it's not meant to. It's a simple drawing package. But for those of you who really want to see what's in it, let's just take a look at some of the items. Electrical logic gates, that's a language I don't speak. I don't know my nan from a nor. I think I could probably remember from 1976 high school if I really put my head into it. Do you need some resistors? Do you need some capacitors? You know, there's a pretty decent little library of stuff here. What this isn't is about electronic design analysis workflow. This is about simple putting of shapes on paper. If you expect that you can go into here and pick up a 0805 4.2K, excuse me, 2.2K resistor, this is not the software you are looking for. In the best words of Star Wars. So you can pick up all of these different things. Oh, I didn't see vacuum tubes before. Let's just drop a whatever this is right here on the drawing, and from there we can probably tag it with some text, and we can draw a line to connect it to something, just that simply. I don't know how much more fun it can be to do some drawings, but I have found the replacement for Visio that I came looking for. I'm tickled pink that I did. I once again thank you, Mark, very much for suggesting this to me. It gets the need accomplished. And then so where am I today with this whole project, you may ask? Well, I am, oops, that's the wrong camera angle. I hate it when that happens. I am now in the stage where I have all of my notes nicely laid out. You know, here's some early drawings I did with some of the boxes, and I kept them all just for grins. And I've got this lovely schematic now. I've got some measurements on how wide and how tall these things would be, depending on how I orient the box. Because, you know, I'm old school. When I learned drafting in grade 9, it came all out that way to me. You know, like many of you, maybe I buy some pots, five for $1, five for $50, or whatever the case might be, pots and knobs. Well, now I can take them and measure them and do my prototyping work on it, right? Instead of taking my parts and trying to hold them up into an enclosure and say, well, what happens if I take 2 of these and go back to back at them? And I land up drilling holes, and then I land up saying bad words because I realize after I've drilled holes that they don't fit. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't have to do that anymore. And really, this was a simple drawing problem. I needed to replace a whiteboard. I am so thankful that you guys gave me the guidance you did, and I just wanted to show you where I landed up. Now, what I did land up into was this really interesting discussion with a few people on the side. And at this time, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce Brent Carlson. He's going to talk about what else we can do with some different types of drawing software at a level that I don't compute at, but most of you do based on the overwhelming number of responses you gave me to drawing software. So, Mr. Brent, please take it away.
Vince, that is something to remember. See, 8 years, we wouldn't be talking now if we would have had this conversation 8 years ago, because I'd be using what you are using, okay? Because like when Vince proposed the topic, this was very near and dear to my heart. Because 8 years ago, back when I had some time over a winter, I was playing with open source hardware and would have my little perf board, and I'd connect everything up, and I wanted a way to capture a pretty picture for exactly the same reason as Vince has described. And at that time, being a Linux user, which I prefer, I use at work, so that's what I prefer. I found GEDA. Now I've seen people call it GEDA. I've seen people refer to it as other things. I looked at that as GNU EDA, so I call it GEDA. But whatever it's called, went to install that, and that turned out to be a true pleasure, and not in a positive sense of things. It turns out that I've not been able to find a package for that to install. I'm sure there might be a way to build from source, but that's not something I had was willing to do right away as the first step. But I did find a fork of it, okay, called Lepton EDA, which let me log into Ubuntu here, and I'll show you. Sorry, that was so enthralled in your presentation, Vince. I didn't have this ready. Okay, let me share my screen. We'll share this guy. Now, remember, I mean, you begin with the end in mind, as Vince talked about. My goal was exactly Vince's, and that was just, I want to capture a pretty picture. I don't intend to use this to drive any PCB flow. Okay, I'm not using this to drive any verification or net listing flow as I do at work. In my day job, I just wanted to capture a pretty picture. And it's as you described out there, some of the characteristics. Now, it doesn't do the nice packaging, if you will, or the physical layout side of things, as Vince kindly showed, to look inside of the layout of your physical enclosure. Now that's a neat use for what Vince showed. This doesn't solve that. This is all just about capturing connectivity and creating a picture. Now, one of the things that I like about this, so I was happily able to go find the Lepton EDA, Lepton Schematic is what it's called. It installs very easy under Linux. Okay, just pick your package manager, go out and get it. And what I liked about it and what drew me to it was how easy it was to create the, to pick from the built-in library of building blocks. Okay, so they have like Vince showed under his case, there are simple things like there's a battery, what do you want to capture? There's beeper, there's, capacitors and things. So you have symbols that you can pick from. Now, again, I'm just making a picture. That's all I'm making. So I don't care if there are footprints associated with it. I don't care if there are any simulation models associated with it. I'm just making a picture. And then, as Vince showed, you can instantiate these things and make your picture, add text to it and the like. So that's the one that I chose to use. But as I began with, if I would have known about Draw.io, or if that was available 8 years ago, that's what I would have used, because that looks to be simpler to use in my view. So that's what I found and liked. So for what that's worth. So back to you, Vince.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Brent. So, start video probably works better if I do that. There we go. Brent, thank you so much. And so we had all of these great answers coming around, and I couldn't not, say there's multiple purposes for what we do. Sometimes we need a whiteboard. Sometimes we need to figure out a parts count. Sometimes we need to build a bill of materials for this thing that we're designing, and sometimes we need to create a CAD or a CNC drawing to try and figure out that circuit board. So anyway, I did not certainly mean to go into any great depth with these, but more to open people's eyes as mine were. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing your ideas with me. I found a great solution, and better yet, it satisfies my sense of it's free, it must be for me. Back to you, Mr. Rod.
Well, very good. Thank you, Vince. I appreciate that. And I think that scratched an itch that a number of us have had so far, because some of these packages are pretty deep dive, and getting into them can be a bit of an investment. I know George has done a session for us in the past on design, and that can, George, how long did that take? I remember recording it. I just can't remember how long it was.
Oh gosh, it was a 10-minute video that took 2 hours.
Yeah, pretty much. It was fun. It was really fun to do. And by the way, I think we posted that. We put that on Workbench, right?
It's on YouTube. I think I might have posted it on my YouTube channel, which I think now has like 6 videos.
Yeah, there you go. You're now up to
hey, Rod.
up to that. Yep, Michael.
I was going to say, we're not getting any younger, and what great tools are now available to. How many of you have crawled under your desk and go, or ran a new feed line 11 years ago and go, I'll remember that this particular piece of RG213 goes to, is it the 2-meter antenna?
The black one is the HF one.
That's right. The thick black one with the dirt on it.
That's one.
Documentation is everything.
We talk about that in the next episode. We mentioned that even last night in our quick recording we did. So please.
Yeah.
I've started.
I like Andre has a hot tip for us here. Label everything.
Yes, label your software. That was an old Burke Breathe thing, right? With Bloom County, with the Banana 6000. Make sure you label your software. And Vince has got something up on his camera there, and
don't lose your token from your token ring.
Well, that falls on the floor every once in a while. Yes.
And then you have to chase around, then it gets lost in the Ethernet. And so, I'm holding, oh, there we go, autofocus finally kicked in. I'm holding a cable made by ABR Industries. These are really decent cables at decent prices. But the thing they do, and something I do around my shop, is I put a piece of heat shrink on my cables first. But before I shrink it, I handwrite on it in my neatest, not doctor's handwriting, what the cable is going to be used for. Maybe my identifying sign, VE6LK. Maybe it's length, LK, 25 feet, 35 feet, 37 feet. It's obvious what the cable is. It's RG8X. I don't need to label that. And then I shrink it on, which is an awesome way to do it. If you look around, you can actually find heat shrink labels that you can run through a tractor feed pin fed printer. You remember pin feed tractor fed pin printers? Epson MX80. Anybody?
I was looking, Vince, I have a P-Touch that prints ink streak tubing, and it's an orange thing, and I've got a lot of it. You can buy different diameters up to 12 millimeter, and I was trying to find it, but it's in the mess here somewhere. So, but yeah, when I do commercial stuff or what Ken and I do with timing, everything goes up with those labels on it. That way, because a year from now we're going to, what was this adapter cable for? This DB9 to a 1/8 inch on the other end. I mean, how many of those do you own for special adapters you built and go, is this for the Yaesu, the Kenwood, maybe the program, and you get the idea.
Yeah.
Can you share that some week?
Flash it.
Mike, can you share that if you find it? That'd be awesome to.
I'm going to continue to look.
Heat shrink tube for the P-Touch on Amazon. Mike, you're my hero.
Wow. This event isn't supposed to cost people, very much money. But,
very much. Stream
now
deck.
I'm scared because
Rod,
I
how
love
long
that
have you been
idea.
doing this? Rod, how long have you been doing this?
I
should
know.
better.
I know.
Oh my God, I didn't know this existed. My life is
They come
complete.
in. You're done.
Oh wow.
They come in
when
cartridges.
When you're Dilbert and you have the knack, you
Okay,
gotta have this stuff.
there'll be a pause while everybody orders this on Amazon.
I'm sorry, it's sold out now.
Sell it out.
Too bad, guys.
I have
one
a
is it?
P-Touch.
Be a
Yikes.
patron if you want to get in before they're sold out. Be a patron.
No kidding.
Oh, good. I
And
got
so,
three of them.
Peter.
It's not a P-Touch. What?
Peter, go ahead.
No. I just said I've got three of these things that are not a P-Touch. I have to order
Now
another.
you got to buy another machine.
I gotta buy another one.
Craziness.
This is fabulous.
Hey, very good. We do also have a little bit of bonus content today. And I'm going to keep rolling the recording for this. And Vince and I were talking yesterday about the Heil PRAS or Parametric Receive Audio System. And I've talked to you guys about that before.
I found it.
And there'll be a short pause while, okay, so that is a dedicated machine or what is that?
It's a Rhino Pro 3000, but yes.
Okay, so it's not just,
And,
does the media fit and it's a standard OEM or is like, it must be in this particular machine?
This is, I've had this for 10 years now, but I know there are other ones,
But I'm thinking with, I'll have to look at the media and see what that cartridge fits. Is it an M cartridge or it should have a letter
it's
on it.
Special Rhino cartridges, but you get the idea. I mean, they're not the only one. I mean, give George another 90 seconds and
he'll find it.
URL.
He'll find it. He'll post it and we'll all get it. I'll put a group order in. Okay, so without slowing things down too much, Vince and I got talking because Vince had just picked up one of these parametric units. Just 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago?
About 2 weeks ago, yeah.
And we got talking about the benefits of this, and Vince offered to do a little bit of a demo. So with the gods of the demo being favorable on us, we'll have a look at that as well. So this probably can be a little more interactive, but be prepared for some scratchy audio.
Be prepared for scratchy audio and the gods of the demo. And I am sure that I am not going to demonstrate it nearly as well as the guy that I saw do the demo here, 6-8 weeks ago. I'm just a little bit shy on my remembrance of exactly when it was. But I will say that I was impressed enough with it that I knew I wanted to add it into my own shack, because I'm struggling with, well, I'm not 39 anymore. I'm 39 on my 24th or 32nd or 15th anniversary, or however we were phrasing it earlier this morning. And like many of us getting to be that age, I didn't suffer exposure to high noise at a job. I come across this genetically, but I have tinnitus. I have this constant ringing in my ears, and it's really quite aggravating. And it gets worse under certain conditions, and it sounds different in both ears. And, I was trading emails with a fellow who bought the Parametric at the candy store, and I said to him, what was it about the Parametric product that you really liked? And his answer really kind of surprised me. He said, well, on the front of it, there's these 2 headphone jacks, and I built this Y adapter, and I can independently control the volume on the left and the right, and I can adjust for the sound coming into each of my ear cuffs, and I can overcome that tinnitus, and I can really hear. That was the single feature that he loved the most. So oddly enough, the product that was designed to let 2 people listen at independent levels, he's repurposed it for another. So with the demo gods being with us here, I'm going to see how well I can do this. First off, here's a current picture of my shack live and in living color. I have a very modest radio, and I'm really happy with it. I've had modest radios before, Kenwood TS120, TS130. This was a big upgrade for me to move to my Yaesu FT450. And I'm really quite happy with it. But this is my entire radio corner. Now, you've seen my workbench before, and I've got some other space in the other room that I can lab up stuff in. But this is my whole entire operating corner and all of the gear I use to operate at home. What you don't see are a couple of switches that are down beneath here, which are not quite as ergonomic as I wished, but they work quite well for me. And I have a studio-powered speaker that I was able to find on an online buy and sell, and I bought a pair of them, and they were inexpensive is the best word. They were $250 a pair when they are working, and this pair came to me for far less than $100 because one of them isn't. And lo and behold, it just needs some electrolytic capacitor swapped out in the power supply. And so I added this to my shelf, and the first notable difference I had was, boy, I can hear stuff. And it's kind of exciting, right? Because what's that expression about DX? You got to hear them to work them, right? And so I used to listen with this old speaker, and this old speaker, which I've now put in storage, as you can tell by my very elegant wire wrap technique. This speaker used to hang off of the bottom of a monitor. It's designed to plug onto a Dell monitor. The drivers in it are about yay long. Of course, they're about this tall. There is a little bit of porting out the back, but ladies and gentlemen, this is not anybody's definition of high fidelity. It is better than the built-in speaker in the radio, however. I knew it was an improvement at least there. So the simple act of putting a decent speaker on my bench really improved my listening experience. The next big thing that really improved it was the Parametric. And to that end, I have to do a little bit of audio switching here. Stand by a moment while I flip over to my speaker. Can somebody nod their head?
That's good.
Good, thank you so much. So now you're coming in off of the speaker, and you'll be able to hear the output from the radio. And so first off, as I understand the product, and I'm fortunate to have Bob here along today. So Bob, I'm going to invite you to jump in and correct me where I falter on this demo I'm about to give, because the product is very new to me. But the product is rather simply laid out, and the whole idea behind it is that you can control the level of audio coming into it from your radio, the level of audio going out to, in my case, a powered speaker, and you can independently control the level of audio going out to 3 different devices, a recording output or a couple of headphone outputs, or as I said, that customer of ours from the candy store that wanted independent left and right audio control into their headphones. The idea behind parametric equalization says that we can sweep ranges and cross over each other in terms of their, get my camera shot right, in terms of their active range with each other, so that we can really finely tailor the audio that comes out of our ear. And we can, most importantly, in the mid-range section, which is where the majority of the voice range is heard, we can really select and hear for ourselves that voice that we're trying to pick out of the noise. Now, what you don't see in the camera shot, although I could really adjust it here. There we go. Here's my radio. And this is 14300. I'm hoping that the Maritime Mobile Net. Oh, the Maritime Mobile Net is on. I can barely hear it thanks to a blessed S5 noise level, which is pretty normal at my location. It's S7 or worse on lower bands. So with such a high noise level, I'm struggling to get everything I can out of signal. I have a phase shifting noise eliminator to try and get rid of noise in my immediate area, and many thanks to John Fallows, VE6LK, who's with us today, for his great videos on how to eliminate noise in the shack. That's taught me an awful lot. Play.fallows.ca is his website URL, and you can learn all about that off his website as well. And so back to the parametric, though, the idea is that if we think about voice response range, it really falls in that, I think of it as kind of 300 to 3,500 sort of realm. And we want to roll off those lows below 300 because that's really where the muddy sound comes into it. We want to sometimes roll off those highs above 6 kilohertz, because above that it's really sibilance and clarity. Although some would say that breathing noises, the simple that we do, kind of falls in the 10 to 12K range, and we still want to hear that for intelligibility. But it's really that mid part that that the Heil products really focus in on, because they're set up to hit that sweet spot of around 2,500 hertz. Now, the one frequency you've noticed I haven't mentioned just yet is 1,000 hertz. It's 1 kilohertz. It's that test tone, right? That we all use as we're lining up our repeaters or we're adjusting the transmit audio on a radio. I'd like you to all do this with me for just a moment. I'd like you, now for those of you wearing headphones, you'll have to take them off for this, but I'd like you to take your hands and cup your ears tightly. And I want you all just to say a simple phrase like, you know, now's the time for all good men to come to the aid of their country, or the quick, lazy fox jumped over the big red dog. And that noise you're hearing by cupping your hands tightly over your head is kind of that 900,000, 1,100 hertz sort of range. And that's that, I call it that can. It sounds like a tin can sort of thing. And so you can adjust all of these different characteristics within that by simply telling your parametric, well, gee, I want to go to 1,000 hertz because this sounds really canny. I don't like it. And I'm going to turn the gain from, and I should really adjust this to say this, these are all flat because that's how it comes from the factory. I want to cut that 1,000 hertz down so that the signal is more intelligible, because it takes, if you're finding there's too much can in the sound, you can take it out that way. If there's too much sibilance in the sound, I can roll off the highs. Or if there's too much muddy in the signal, I can roll off the bottom end. We've all heard those guys on 75 meter AM who have the deluxe audio, those guys with sideband that are doing deluxe audio, and everybody has their opinion on what audio sounds good and what audio sounds terrible. I'm not going to comment on any of that, but this is all about being able to hear, to listen to that which you are hearing, and to be able to let your brain do the work to separate the signal from the noise. So without further ado, I'm going to see prepare for a lot of static as I try to find a signal. Oh, is there a contest on today? There must be. Imagine that. Oh, Polish GX contest today. All right, so I'm going to set the parametric so that it's back to factory settings. I'm going to turn down that output a bit so you can hear me as I talk, and then I'll turn the output back up as I bring these frequencies in and out. So at this moment, I've set it to be flat and in what Heil considers to be the default position that most of us hams want to use. Remember, we're really dealing with those pieces of spectrum that are between 300 and 3500 that we want to hear, and that sweet spot for voice is around 2500 kilohertz. Or 2.5 kilohertz, 2500 hertz, right? As a matter of fact, when you unpack the box, it comes with this great big orange sheet that says, these are the default settings. Start here. We've tested your product. We know it works best here. So you can't go wrong with it. So I'm going to sweep through the mid-range, leaving it at flat first, and then show you what the difference sounds like. I'm going to start sweeping from low to high. I'm at about 800 hertz, waiting for him to talk. You can barely hear him, right? All of a sudden, you can almost hear the guy. I need a better signal for demo. I need one that's probably 6 or 12 dB instead of one that's just at the noise floor. So let me go find one. These are some of the struggles with dealing with the bunker at VE6LK and all the noise I put up with. And I know a lot of you guys are dealing with that kind of noise too, right? Rod, how's your noise floor?
Oh, horrific, but getting better slowly. I've replaced some of the wiring, some of the coax, taking some of the hints off this call to make things better. Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Vince, if you want to feel better about your noise floor, come visit George and I in San Jose, and then you'll feel like your 7 is something you strive for.
Yeah.
No kidding.
No, thank you.
And Bob, I see you there in the background. And feel free to jump in. I know I've got you on mute, on Zoom mute, but you can turn that off anytime you want.
All right. Here's a couple of guys gib-gabbing away on 205. So here we go. I'm going to sweep that same thing again. So here's a guy who's clearly got some bottom end in his audio because I've got the parametric turned all the way down to the bottom. Oops. Why don't I... Oh, sure. Just as I'm going to do the demo. The demo gods are with us today. He stops talking and he turns it over to the guy who's local to me, and I'm in his skip zone. That is just the way it goes sometimes.
Yes. That's okay.
Take a deep breath in through the nose and out through the toes, as the yoga masters are wont to say. Well, I might have to, make it up and wait a little bit as that signal comes back. But again, I can take this, and you can hear the difference even coming out of the speaker as I adjust it towards that sweet spot, right? Of course, I'm sweeping it up towards the upper end of the frequency spectrum as I do that. With each of these controllers, go ahead.
I got a real strong guy at 207.
207, thanks, Peter.
Is that assisted? Wait a second.
No, I do not hear him at all. Isn't that aggravating when that happens? Wonder what I'll hear on 40 meters. Stand by.
Get those Westerners out pitching in.
Oh, wait just a minute. Why didn't I think of this before now? There's a signal we can rely on. All right, so not a lot of speech, and I'm clearly driving it a little bit too hot on the input, and you can hear that distortion on the output a little bit, but we can work with this at the top of the minute when a little bit of voice comes up. So if there's a little bit too much hiss in that signal for your liking, we can turn down, we can cut the high end drive from 0 dB backwards. I'm not sure what the sweep range is on the cut and boost knob on each one of these. But
So
if there's
one of the things Vince and I discussed was the idea that you can use other parametric devices to do this kind of thing. But what gets really, yes, yeah, and Andre's holding something up there, absolutely. But for most of us, we want something really, really simple to use, which is what I like about this device, is it's super simple to use. There's only a few controls, and you can get real results with it.
Some of the parametrics I looked at, I wanted to solve this problem. I tell you, I wanted to solve this problem, and I was taking a look at, I love building kits. And so I was taking a look at, well, what parametric EQs can I buy? I took a look at this from a financial perspective. What parametric kits can I buy? Oh, darn, those are really expensive. Boy, they're really complicated. Remember, simple? That's not my style. I don't want to build a complicated kit. I want something I can put together in a weekend, maybe over 6 or 8 hours. Well, there's an awful lot of filtration and an awful lot of other electronics required to do this job. I got quite an education on what's involved in making a parametric EQ. Well, then I took a look at some used pro audio gear and 9 or 12 knobs on the front of it. Sure, I can take one frequency and I can bring it in and I can bring them within 100 hertz of each other, and I can roll this one off and I can boost this one if that's what I really need. That's too much. Okay. I needed something simple and easy to use. So for sure, this fit the need. In about 45 seconds, I'll actually get another sample of voice, and I can show you just exactly where that voice piece will pick up.
Okay, so we'll just be waiting for that. What I'm going to do to give you guys the plan is we're going to swing into Vince's section in a second here, but then I'm going to stop the recording, and then we can get into our general chat. So if there's any other questions we've got on this topic just before Vince goes into the demo?
Here we go. Sweeping from high down to low again. I really should be doing this at 7 minutes past the hour when they do a lot of talking on WWV, but anyway, I hope this gives you some idea of the kinds of things you can do with this. It's an interesting addition to my shack. I'm already having fun with it. I'm already using it to pull some difficult signals out of the noise for intelligibility. I'm sure I haven't done the demo anywhere near the justice it is, but it gives you a fast overview.
But not bad for not rehearsed and just kind of spontaneous of us. So thank you so much, Vince. I really appreciate your talk today.